delve a bit further into your expertise. Lord Nunes.
First of all, thank you for inviting me. Thanks to the Macedonian government. What Prime Minister said, but it's an interesting party. You say everything good, isn't it? But let me tell you, if I had to see this speech again, I would remove even a comma or full stop, because it's exactly what he has said is happening in Macedonia. It's a great country. When I came to this country about 40 years back, I was not impressed only with the brick and mortar of this country, but I was impressed with the people. And that's why I am here since the last 44 years almost, and I'm doing my business. Now, I think it's a great country. It's a small country, but it's a great country to do business. And I'm now part of the Carry Foods, which has a revenue of almost about 58 billion euro. And we are actually looking for the agricultural opportunity, the agricultural produce opportunity, because we have about 47% of the ready-made market in this country between noon products, which I am founder, and the Carry Foods. And we are actively looking for importing some of the vegetables from there, because that is what we are using. As I can see it here, those who are live in London, they all look very healthy, so they have not much of time they have eaten my ready.
I've definitely had a few myself.
You look very healthy. So it's a great country. The bottom line is, yes, you should look at it. Those who are actually, the important thing nowadays in a Western world is that competition, competitive, affordable, value. You must have a product which has a value and affordable value, and therefore you need to have components for your products from a country where you have a good labor, educated labor, good governance. And I think what the Prime Minister did not say one thing, and neither Dr. Neil said this, that it's a great country where law and order is fantastic. Incredible. I didn't see the policeman at all. It's really a great country to be doing the business here. And here, of course, we have I've interacted with the Macedonian ambassador who is sitting here, great helpful. And we have our British ambassador in Macedonia, who's also very great help to the people who actually need some assistance there. So, bottom line, yes, do business in Macedonia. Look at it.
Thank you. Very emphatic. Next.
Yeah, the first presentation from the Prime Minister was very much a kind of quantitative assessment of the development, and then we had Neil's case study. From my perspective, running a business school, what's really important are the attitudinal factors that Lord Nunes has cited as well, in all kinds of directions. So from our experience, just visiting and doing business in Macedonia, everyone was helpful, everyone was thoughtful, it was very practical. From an educational level perspective, the educational levels of the workforce is high. We're trying, as Ashridge, to do a couple of things. One is help develop local infrastructure in Macedonia, but also, as was indicated, we have a scholarship program to internationalize some of the local high potentials there at our end. We certainly travel the world a lot in the business school setting. The second part that I think was only touched upon, but I think it's also very important for direct investment, is it's a nice place to be. Because there are lots of places you can invest which you can probably make lots of money in, but your people just don't want to go there. They want to go there for a day or 3, but they don't want to go there for any length of time. I was touched because Lord Nunes and I work with some Indian colleagues. So to make themselves feel at home, the first thing they did was open an Indian restaurant. Then they bought a French creperie where you can get samosa crepes now. The only thing they haven't figured out yet is how to teach the Macedonians to like chili peppers and really hot food. That will probably take a long time. So without wittering on for any grand length of time, the infrastructure is good, the people are nice and smiley and work with you, and there are a lot of countries where that's just not the case.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. Rafa, I'm Macedonian, certainly I will try to provide an unbiased view to the extent possible. I believe my country is well positioned to achieve dynamic growth in the next 10-15 years. The reform agenda of the government is anchored around the EU accession process, which provides the element of stability and predictability of the legislation, the regulation. While on the other hand, on the side of incentives, we are still not a member of the European Union, so we are able to provide various incentives and create a business environment which is certainly the best in the region of Southeast Europe. Macroeconomic stability, we have a long track record of long-term macroeconomic stability. We have fourth lowest debt in Europe, 34.5%. We have a very conservative fiscal policy and also banking sector which is sound, stable and supporting private companies. On the other hand, the reform agenda was wrapped around the objective to increase the competitiveness and productivity of Macedonian economy and the workers, including three major pillars. One is business environment regulation, the other one is infrastructure, the third one is certainly human capital. So we invested a lot in many of these areas and we tried to improve the business environment. So as explained by the Prime Minister, Macedonia has been ranked as fifth best reformer in the world in 2006 and 2013 according to doing business, but also according to other indicators. And this includes certainly the most attractive tax package in Europe with 10% tax on profit, which is effectively zero if profit is reinvested or retained. But also we have very simplified and tried to streamline the procedures in order for businessmen to have better service from the administration. Infrastructure is very good. The location of the country is best possible with two trans-European corridors crossing Macedonia, and we are investing together with partners such as EBRD and others in energy, transport, railways, roads, and everything which is needed for low logistic cost. And finally, know-how, human capital. We have a young, competitive workforce with good skills. Of course, there is room for further improvement. We are investing a lot in education. Roughly 6% of GDP goes to education, including all segments of education. And we believe that Macedonian workforce is very competitive nowadays, and we've been able to hear from investors that confirm this. So in total, the potential for growth is there. We can certainly achieve twice higher growth compared to the average in Europe, and stability is there both on the side of macroeconomic stability and stability of the legislation and political stability.
Thank you. Now let's get some perspective from multilateral institutions, Mr. Viazoli.
Thank you very much and good morning everyone. So first of all, a little bit about what we have done as a European Bank in Macedonia. We have been there for many years. I think we opened the office back in '93, so it's a long relationships that we have been having with the country. Today we have a business volume of all our projects of €1 billion, which is, I think, places us at the top of institutional investors in the country. Almost 600 million is the active portfolio. Most of the deals are doing very, very well. 70% of our transactions are with the public sector, i.e. in us engaging with the government and its various ramifications in the country. And although we don't need to answer why EBRD in Macedonia, because this is our mandate, this is what we do, okay? I can tell you why we have been particularly successful in Macedonia, and mostly it is because of the capability that we have had to engage with reliable, very consistent counterparties. And when we look at the government side, probably it is not by chance that we have more than double our portfolio of investment over the past 4 to 5 years, because we could actually make long-term planning with an administration which could see ahead 2, 3, 4 years ahead in terms of long-term planning. And because of what we finance, which is not only private sector, it is also public sector, the capability to plan ahead 3 to 5 years, the big road infrastructures and railways and power stations and electricity generation, transmission lines, energy efficiency projects. It is essential for an institution like us, again, to employ resources and to plan ahead. So we don't have to say why, but referring to what Dr. Collins said before, out of its list of why Macedonia, I can probably say that the government support in this case, the government reliability in our case, has probably been the most important factor for us to be so effective in the country. And if we look at the situation in the region, this is also very important because Macedonia is obviously competing with countries in the region. And I see Victor here has been traveling around like a crazy boy promoting Macedonia. We have to say that this exercise that Macedonia entertained a few years ago in promoting the country as a destination for investment has been successful, even more if we consider that the success came in crisis years. Very difficult for the region to attract any investments over the past 5 years. Still, Macedonia managed to do it. And it is due partly to what the Prime Minister was mentioning, partly to what the Prime Minister just mentioned now. It is a set of a reliable ecosystem for companies to go invest, find stability, mostly political but also economic, which allow them to be there settled in a good environment.
Thank you. Mr. Kalman?
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and good morning, everyone. Also, as Claudia, I don't think I need to explain why. We are a development finance institution, probably the largest global finance institution investing in emerging markets. So for us, the fact that we'll be supporting projects in Macedonia is not a question of why or why not. I think the biggest argument, I think you heard already this morning, is that if you have repeat investors from countries such as UK, US, Italy, Russia, obviously multiple multilaterals, it is clear that something is going right. And then I think it goes back to some of the criteria that both the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister were talking about. When you look at the world and the global economy today, if you have a country which has fairly low public debt, fairly stable growth, fairly stable banking system with relatively low non-performing loans, you create an environment which attracts foreign direct investment. You are, over time, building up a capital and a set of arguments that companies like Johnson Matthey and others are finding attractive to come in. And I think it is not as easy, as Claudio said, with a 2 million population in a fairly distant corner of Europe to be that attractive. But if you see what has happened over the past several years in doing business indicators, with inflation, with fiscal stability, I oversee an activity of International Finance Corporation in some 20-odd countries, $4.5 billion program annually, about $10 billion portfolio. There are not that many countries in Europe and Central Asia that could boast that kind of set of parameters. So why from a perspective of multilateral is very easy. Why from a perspective of a private investor in an emerging country is actually not that hard either. So it would be great to get some of your questions and get the discussion of specifically what we can do.
Okay, thank you to you all for kind of setting the tone for us for our discussion.